What if the history of our species is not a story of the Earth alone? What if we are not the children of this world, but the legacy of a wandering star, deep in the silent reaches of our solar system? Ancient tales whisper of a hidden planet called Nibiru, a world that follows a long, patient orbit through the darkness. The tablets of Mesopotamia tell of the Anunnaki, beings who descended from the heavens not as gods, but as travelers from a decaying world. They were architects of the first cities, shaping our destiny and mixing their essence with the clay of the earth to create a workforce for the stars. This is a journey through myths that might be memories and conspiracies that hide a chilling truth. Are we chance or the descendants of a cosmic plan? Tonight, we look up. Are we home or are we visitors? In the silent, shifting sands of southern Iraq, where the wind whispers through the ruins of cities that predated the memory of the West, a library of ghosts lay buried for millennia. In the mid-19th century, archaeologists unearthed thousands of clay shards from the library of Ashurbanipal, covering a complex, wedge-shaped script we now call cuneiform. To the mainstream scholar, these were myths, the imaginative ramblings of a primitive people trying to explain the thunder and the rain. But what if these tablets are not stories at all? What if they are a cipher, a detailed record of a history so ancient and so profound that it challenges every pillar of our modern understanding? Welcome to the decoding of the Sumerian tablets, where the line between God and astronaut begins to vanish. What if the story of humanity is not the product of chance evolution, but a deliberate genetic intervention? This is a core question that arises when we stop reading the Sumerian texts as poetry and start reading them as logs. The tablets speak of the Anunnaki, a term that has haunted alternative historians for decades. In the strictest translation, it means those who from heaven to earth came. They were not described as ethereal spirits or metaphors for the sun and moon. They were described as physical beings who arrived in great, shining vehicles, bringing with them a level of technology that our ancestors could only describe as magic. The Sumerian cipher begins with a radical premise popularized by researchers like Zacharias Sitchin. He argued that the Sumerians possessed an astronomical knowledge that was impossible for their time. They knew the colors of distant planets, the composition of the outer solar system, and most importantly, they spoke of a 10th member of our cosmic family, a planet called Nibiru. According to translations, Nibiru follows a vast, elliptical orbit that brings it into the inner solar system only once every 3,600 years. If we consider the rhythm of such a world, we begin to see a civilization shaped by long, patient cycles. A world where a single year could outlast human generations. A world that eventually faced a planetary crisis. The tablets tell us that the atmosphere of Nibiru began to fail, and the only solution was to create a protective shield made of gold. This was not a quest for wealth, but a quest for survival. The Anunnaki came to Earth 450,000 years ago because our planet was rich in this precious metal. They established their first base, Eridu, in the Fertile Crescent, but the primary mining operations were located in the Abzu, a region many identify as Southern Africa. Imagine a world where the first visitors were not explorers, but miners, beings from a wandering world who looked at Earth as a resource colony. For thousands of years, the tablets suggest the lesser gods, known as the Ijiji, toiled in the mines. But eventually they rebelled. This rebellion is where the Sumerian cipher becomes truly chilling. To solve the labor crisis, the chief scientist of the Anunnaki, a being known as Enki, proposed a radical solution. He suggested creating a primitive worker, a being that could bear the yoke of labor. The texts, specifically the Epic of Atrahasis, describe a process that sounds remarkably like modern genetic engineering. Enki speaks of mixing the clay of the earth with the essence of a god. What if the clay was the indigenous hominid, perhaps Homo erectus, and the essence was the DNA of the Anunnaki themselves? If this is true, then humanity is not a natural inhabitant of this world, but a hybrid, a species designed for a specific purpose. This realization changes everything. It suggests that our drive to build, our obsession with gold, and our hierarchical societies are not social constructs, but inherited traits programmed into us by our creators. The cipher suggests that we were the Lulu, the primitive workers, fashioned in the laboratory of the Abzu. In the text, Enki is seen as a compassionate architect, but his brother, Enlil, viewed humanity as a noisy, expendable nuisance. This cosmic sibling rivalry would define the fate of our species, leading eventually to the Great Flood, a cataclysm that many theorists believe was a deliberate attempt by Enlil to wipe out an experiment that had grown too independent. But why is this knowledge hidden? Why do we not see these ships in our museums today? The answer may lie in a conspiracy of silence that spans the history of human civilization. If the truth of our origin were revealed, if we understood that we were the product of extraterrestrial engineering, the foundations of every major religion and government would crumble. The power of the elite has always been built on the claim of divine right. From the kings of Sumer to the pharaohs of Egypt, rulers claim to be the chosen representatives of the gods. If those gods were simply advanced travelers, the mandate of the ruling class disappears. Some believe that the Anunnaki never truly left. They suggest that the influence of Nibiru persists in the shadows of our global institutions. Organizations like NASA are often accused of hiding data about the approach of a rogue planet, a world that is still out there, lurking in the darkness of the Kuiper Belt. Why would they hide it? Perhaps because the return of Nibiru signifies the return of the Masters. In 2025, as we deploy the most advanced telescopes in human history, the silence from official channels remains deafening. Could it be that the James Webb Telescope has already captured images of the Red Planet, the crossing world, only for that information to be classified at the highest levels of national security? The Sumerian cipher is more than a translation of old clay. It is a key to understanding the gaps in our own history. Think about the suddenness of the Sumerian civilization. They appeared on the stage of history with a fully formed language, complex law codes, advanced agriculture, and a deep understanding of the stars. Mainstream history struggles to explain this leap. It is as if a light was suddenly switched on in the dark. The tablets provide the answer. The knowledge was given. It was handed down by the Anunnaki to their chosen intermediaries. This was the beginning of the kingship, a system that moved the power from the stars into the hands of a few. The mystery of the clay tablets deepens when we look at the specific terms used. Words that were once thought to be religious metaphors are being re-examined as technical descriptions. The Shem, often translated as a name or a monument, is argued by some researchers to represent a rocket or a flying vehicle. The Mi, described as objects given to the gods to maintain civilization, sound like data disks or memory modules containing the blueprints of society. When we apply this technical lens, the myths of Sumer transform into a high-tech saga of colonization and genetic manipulation. What if our very DNA contains the signature of this ancient crossing? Modern genetics reveals that a large portion of our genome is considered junk DNA, sequences that seemingly have no function. But some theorists speculate that this is actually the encrypted code of our creators, a biological archive waiting for the right frequency or the right level of understanding to be unlocked. If we were designed by the Anunnaki, then our potential is far greater than we have been led to believe. The suppression of this knowledge is not just about history. It is about control. By keeping us in the dark about our origins, those in power ensure that we remain the Lulu, the primitive workers, unaware of our own cosmic inheritance. In the Epic of Atrahasis, Enki defies the orders of the council and warns humanity of the coming deluge. He instructs a man to build a boat, a vessel to preserve the seed of life. This mirrors the biblical story of Noah, but with a crucial difference. In the Sumerian version, the salvation of man is a rebellion against the established order of the gods. It is an act of scientific mercy. If the Anunnaki are real, then we are living in the middle of a conflict that began before the first stone of the pyramids was laid. A conflict between those who wish to see us evolve and those who wish to see us remain as servants. As we peel back the layers of the Sumerian cipher, we find a story that is both terrifying and empowering. It is a story of a wandering world, a desperate mission for gold, and the birth of a hybrid species. It is a story of Nibiru, the planet of the crossing, and its eternal link to the soil of Earth. The clay tablets are not just records of the past. They are warnings for the future. They tell us that our history is not what it seems, and that the gods of our ancestors may be returning to check on their experiment. The silence of the desert may be coming to an end, and as the 3,600-year cycle nears its completion, The truth etched in clay may finally be revealed to a world that has forgotten its own name. Every city that rose from the river banks, every law that was etched into stone, and every temple that reached for the sky was built on the foundation of this ancient contact. The Sumerians were the custodians of memory that we are only now beginning to reclaim. They tracked the movements of Nibiru with a precision that we are only now matching with our most advanced computers. They spoke of a time when the heavens and the earth were one, a time before forgetting began. If we are to understand where we are going, we must first understand where we came from. We must look into the shadows of the Fertile Crescent and listen to the silent voices of the clay. The cipher is waiting to be solved, and the answer lies in the stars that our ancestors knew by heart. Imagine a world that belongs to our sun, but remains a stranger to our skies, a rogue wanderer, a giant cloaked in the eternal winter of the deep cosmos. This is the enigma of Nibiru, a planet that defies the circular perfection of our neighborhood. It does not follow the predictable paths of Mars or Venus. Instead, it traces a long, lonely ellipse that carries it far beyond the Kuiper belt into the silent graveyard of the Oort cloud. For thousands of years, it is a ghost, a shadow moving through the dark. But every 3,600 years, it returns. Like a clockwork intruder, it swings back toward the warmth of the sun, bringing with it the architects of our past. Let us look toward the edge of our world, past the orbit of Pluto, where the sun is nothing more than a bright star. This is the Kuiper belt, a massive ring of icy debris, a barrier that marks the end of what we know. Astronomers have long suspected that something massive is hiding there. They call it Planet 9. They see its footprints in the gravity of distant rocks. They watch as small objects are pulled out of their paths, tugged by an invisible hand. Is this Planet 9 actually the legendary Nibiru, the home of the Anunnaki? Zacharias Sitchin claimed that the Sumerian tablets were not just myths, but astronomical records. They spoke of a 12th planet, a world that crosses the paths of all others. Its name, Nibiru, literally means a planet of the crossing. If it exists, its path is unlike anything in our textbook. While Earth circles the sun in a nearly perfect circle, Nibiru moves like a pendulum. It travels so far into the deep cold that the sun becomes a distant memory. Then, it accelerates, diving back into the heart of the solar system with the force of a cosmic sledgehammer. Think about what life would be like on such a world. How does a civilization survive in the absolute zero of the outer reaches? Some theorists suggest that Nibiru is not a dead rock. It may be a world with a thick, protective atmosphere, a planet that generates its own heat from deep within its core. Volcanoes and geothermal vents could provide the energy needed for life to thrive even when the sun is 1 billion miles away. But this internal furnace comes at a price. Sitchin argued that Nibiru's atmosphere was slowly leaking into space. It was decaying. To save their world, the Anunnaki needed a shield. They needed a way to reflect heat and trap their precious air. Their solution was gold, not for jewelry or wealth, but for survival. Gold can be ground into a fine dust and suspended in the atmosphere to create a reflective mirror, a golden veil for a dying planet. This brings us to a chilling realization. If Nibiru is currently at its farthest point, it would be nearly impossible to see. It would be a dark object against a dark background, cold and silent. But as it moves closer, it begins to glow in the infrared spectrum. It gives off heat. Conspiracy theorists claim that the world's most powerful telescopes, like the James Webb and the South Pole Telescope, were built specifically to track this approach. They argue that governments have known about Nibiru for decades. They point to the 1983 report by the Infrared Astronomical Satellite, which allegedly detected a giant object in the direction of the constellation Orion. The news was briefly reported in major newspapers, only to be silenced days later. Why the secrecy? If a planet 4 times the size of Earth is heading our way, why keep it hidden? Some believe the answer is panic. The return of Nibiru is not just an astronomical event. It is a gravitational catastrophe. Its massive weight could trigger earthquakes, tsunamis, and volcanic eruptions as it passes through the asteroid belt. It is a celestial bull in a china shop. But for the Anunnaki, the return is a homecoming. It is a time when the distance between our worlds is at its shortest. The time when the gods can walk among men once again. As we look at the data coming back from our deep space probes, we see anomalies. We see the Kuiper Belt objects behaving in ways that do not make sense. They are clustered. They are tilted. It is as if a giant has walked through a field of snow and left deep tracks behind. Mainstream science calls it a mathematical probability. Conspiracy researchers call it the smoking gun. They believe the countdown has already begun. The 3,600-year cycle is nearing its completion. In the halls of the National Aeronautics and Space Administration and the secret bunkers of elite, the arrival of the crossing planet is the ultimate classified secret. They wait for the moment when the infrared shadow becomes a visible light, when the star of the crossing appears in our morning sky, brighter than the moon. What if the Kuiper Belt is not a boundary, but a gate? For centuries, we believed our solar system ended at Pluto. We were wrong. We discovered a vast, swirling disk of ice and frozen methane, a kingdom of dwarf planets and comets. But even here, in the furthest reaches of the sun's grip, something is wrong. The orbits of these icy bodies are not random. They are being herded. Astronomers at the California Institute of Technology have published papers suggesting that an unseen mass, 10 times heavier than Earth, is patrolling the darkness. This object, which they call Planet 9, follows an orbit that takes between 10,000 and 20,000 years to complete. But Sitchin's Nibiru follows a much shorter path, 3,600 years. Why the discrepancy? Some researchers believe that Nibiru is not a planet in the traditional sense. They suggest it is a brown dwarf, a failed star, a dark companion to our own sun. This would make our solar system a binary system, a common arrangement in the galaxy. If our sun has a dark sister, her gravity would be immense. She would pull Nibiru along with her, dragging it into the inner solar system like a hooked fish. This would explain the extreme elliptical path. It is a dance between two stars, one bright and life-giving, one dark and hidden. This companion has been called Nemesis by some scientists. They believe its arrival coincides with the mass extinctions in Earth's history. The dinosaurs, the great dying, the biblical flood. Each time the dark star and her planet approach, the world trembles. Think about the technical challenges of such a journey. The Anunnaki would be a civilization that lives in the long dark. They would be masters of artificial light and underground heating. Their cities would be fortresses against the void. To them, Earth would be a tropical paradise, a bright, lush jewel in a garden of ice. But it would also be a dangerous place. The gravity of Earth is different. The radiation from the sun is intense. When they arrived 450,000 years ago, they did not come as tourists. They came as survivors. They set up their mining operations in the plains of Mesopotamia and the mountains of Africa. They dug for the gold that would save their home. And while they toiled, they watched the clock. They knew that their time on Earth was limited by the very orbit that brought them here. The elliptical path of Nibiru creates a unique window of opportunity. For a few centuries out of every few millennia, the two worlds are close enough for travel. This is the time of the gods. This is when the clay tablets say the heavens opened, when the Anunnaki descended in their fiery chariots. But as Nibiru reaches its perihelion, its closest point to the sun, it begins to move away again. The window closes. The gods depart. They leave behind their monuments, their laws, their DNA. They leave humanity to wait in the darkness for the next crossing. Is it possible that the rapid advancement of our own space program is a desperate attempt to meet them halfway? Are we building the James Webb Telescope to look for our parents? In 1992, a top astronomer at the United States Naval Observatory, Robert Harrington, became obsessed with the search for Planet X. He believed that the wobbles in the orbits of Uranus and Neptune could only be explained by a large, undiscovered mass. He even met with Zecharia Sitchin to discuss the similarities between his findings and the Sumerian texts. Shortly after, he began planning an expedition to the southern hemisphere to photograph the suspected planet. He died of a sudden, aggressive cancer. The search was officially called off. The wobbles were explained away as measurement errors. But the questions remained. Why did the Naval Observatory stop looking? Why did Harrington's data disappear from public view? The conspiracy deepens when we look at the South Pole. Why did the United States build a massive, state-of-the-art telescope at the bottom of the world? The South Pole Telescope is designed to see in the millimeter and sub-millimeter range. It is built to see heat in the cold. Some claim it is pointing exactly where Nibiru would appear as it climbs out of the southern sky. They believe the elite have already seen it. They believe the Svalbard Global Seed Vault in Norway was built to preserve life during the coming gravitational shift. A modern Noah's Arkansas. They are preparing for the return of the crossing. They are preparing for the day the ellipse brings a wanderer back to our door. Consider the Sumerian symbol for Nibiru, a winged disk, a circle with two great wings stretching out to the sides. To our ancestors, this was a sign of the supreme god, but to an engineer, it looks like a craft with solar sails. Or perhaps it is a description of the planet's appearance as it enters the inner solar system. As the sun's wind hits Nibiru's thick, gold-dusted atmosphere, it might develop a glowing tail, a pair of luminous wings trailing behind it in the solar wind, a celestial bird of fire returning to the nest. This image is burned into the memory of almost every ancient culture. The phoenix, the thunderbird, the winged sun, they are all echoes of the same sight, the return of the king. As we sit here in 2025, the silence from official channels is deafening. We are told the Kuiper Belt is empty. We are told Planet 9 is just a theory. Yet, we see the space agencies of the world racing toward the moon and Mars. We see the billionaires building bunkers in the desert. We see the frantic search for life in the infrared. They are looking for the shadow. They are tracking the pendulum. The elliptical path of Nibiru is the hidden heartbeat of our history. It is the rhythm of our rise and our fall. We are a species with amnesia, living on a planet that is merely a stop on a much longer journey. The gods are not gone. They are simply on the far side of the sun, moving through the dark, waiting for the gravity to pull them back home. The ellipse is closing. The Kuiper Belt is behind them, and the crossing is near. We must ask ourselves, when the red star appears in the sky, will we be ready to meet our makers? Or will we be swept away by the wake of their world? The path is set. The giant is coming, and the stars are about to speak. Imagine a sky that does not belong to the earth, a sky where a massive, reddish orb hangs like a heavy, ripening fruit, pulling at the very tides of our world. This was the moment of the first descent, a moment that has been scrubbed from our history books but remains etched in the oldest stories of our kind. According to the ancient Sumerian records, the gods did not simply appear as spirits in a dream. They descended. They came down from the firmament in what the clay tablets call the enclosure of the heavens. To our primitive ancestors, these were fiery chariots or great birds of metal. To us, looking back through the lens of modern science, they are the first spaceships. For 150,000 years ago, the silence of the Mesopotamian marshlands was shattered, not by a natural storm, but by the rhythmic roar of engines. Let us travel back to that moment, to the place where the heavens truly touched the earth. The landing site was Eridu, the first city ever established on our soil. The Sumerians called it the home in the far away. It was a foothold in a wild and untamed world. But why here? Why did these travelers from a world like Nibiru choose the Fertile Crescent as their first base of operations? The answer lies in the unique composition of our planet. The Earth was a treasure chest. It was a world rich in gold, minerals, and the very biological precursors needed for a grand experiment. These visitors, the Anunnaki, were not here for a casual exploration or a diplomatic mission. They were on a desperate quest for survival. Their own world, Nibiru, was a dying giant. Its atmosphere was thinning, leaking precious heat into the cold void of space. They needed a shield, a golden shield. Gold, with its unique reflective and conductive properties, was the only material that could save their environment, and the Earth was the only place in the solar system where it could be found in abundance. Imagine the scene as the first hatch opened on that ancient marshland. The air of the Earth, thick with oxygen and a heavy scent of wild growth, must have rushed into their sterile cabins. To the Anunnaki, this must have felt like stepping into a greenhouse, a world of overwhelming vibrance and chaotic life. But their eyes were not on the beauty of the landscape. They were on the task at hand. The first 5 cities were established in a precise pattern, a geographic grid that mirrored the stars. Eridu, Bad Tibera, Larsa, Sapar, and Shurapak each had a specific function. Each was a node in a global network of extraction and communication. This was not a primitive settlement. It was a sophisticated colony, a network that was hidden from the eyes of later men, but preserved in the memory of our species. But here is where the mystery darkens. If these cities were so grand, if their towers reached the clouds, why do we not find their steel and glass today? The answer is as chilling as it is simple. Time, cataclysm, and a global conspiracy have conspired to erase the physical traces. Some believe that the true ruins of Eridu do not lie in the dust of modern rock, but deep beneath the shifting waters of the Persian Gulf, hidden by a rising sea and a deliberate silence maintained by those who guard the truth. Governments today, through organizations like NASA, may know exactly where these landing sites are located. Could be that the images we see of Mars and the Moon hold the true evidence of these ancient pit stops. The face on Mars, the geometric towers on the lunar surface. Are these the remnants of the Anunnaki's long journey toward the Earth? In the year 2025, we are closer than ever to the truth, but the truth is a dangerous thing. It challenges the foundations of our religions and our science. It tells us that we are not the masters of our world, but the descendants of an ancient mining colony. Let us look closer at the figure of Enki, the Lord of the Earth, a scientist and a navigator who led that first expedition. In the Sumerian text, he is described as wise and cunning, a being who understood the biological potential of the Earth. He was the one who saw the potential in the clay of our world. But his brother, Enlil, saw only a mission, a task to be completed with cold, mechanical efficiency. This rivalry between the two brothers would define the history of our race. It was a tension between the compassionate creator who wanted to nurture life and the stern commander who saw humanity as nothing more than a tool. The first ascent was not just a landing. It was the beginning of a conflict that would span millennia, a conflict that many theorists believe is still playing out in the corridors of power today. Think about the secret societies and the elite bloodlines that dominate our modern world. They often claim their right to rule from a divine source. But what if that source is not a spiritual one? What if they are the direct heirs of the Anunnaki legacy? Are they guarding the ancient technology that was left behind after the first ascent? If we look at the patterns of our modern cities, we see the echoes of Eridu, the skyscrapers reaching for the heavens, the obsession with gold and material wealth, the structured, hierarchical labor that defines our lives. Is this our natural state, or is it a blueprint left behind by those who stepped off the ships in the marshlands? We are living in a world built on a foundation we no longer recognize. The conspiracy grows even more intricate when we consider the hidden data of modern space exploration. Why did we stop going to the moon for decades? What did the early astronauts see that stayed off the official transcripts? Whispers from former insiders suggest that the lunar surface is littered with the debris of an ancient occupation, craft that defy our current understanding of physics, structures that were built when the Earth was still young. These are the forgotten relics of the first ascent. The Anunnaki did not just land on Earth. They occupied our entire solar system. They turned our moons and planets into staging grounds for their mission. And yet, the official narrative remains one of empty space and rocky desolation. Why the cover-up? Because to admit the truth of the first ascent is to admit that we are not alone. It is to admit that our origins are tied to a wandering planet that is destined to return. Let us consider the orbit of Nibiru once more. The 3,600-year cycle, a cosmic heartbeat that dictates the rise and fall of civilizations. As the year 2025 unfolds, many believe we are approaching the window of its return. The sightings of unidentified flying objects in our skies today are not a new phenomenon. They are the scouts of an arriving fleet. Or perhaps they are the guardians who never truly left. Are they watching their ancient experiment reach its final stage? The mystery of the first ascent is ultimately the mystery of ourselves. We are the children of the stars, shaped by hands from another world. We are the legacy of a voyage that began in the far reaches of the dark. Tonight, we stand on the precipice of a global awakening. The clay tablets have spoken for thousands of years, but we have chosen not to listen. We have traded the truth for myths and the legacy of the Anunnaki for the safety of our religions. But the evidence is surfacing in the vitrified ruins of ancient cities, in the anomalous DNA of our own bodies, in the gold that we continue to hoard as if by some deep, instinctual command. The story of the first ascent is not a tale of the past. It is the prologue of our future. When the heavens touch the earth once again, will we be ready to meet our makers? Or will we remain trapped in the shadows of conspiracy that has kept us blind for eons? Imagine the travelers standing on the shores of the ancient Gulf, looking up at a sky that was still foreign to them. They were architects of a new world, but they were also refugees from a dying one. Their mission was one of necessity, and we are the living proof of that necessity. Every time we look at a golden ring or a shining coin, we are holding a piece of that ancient mission. Every time we look at the stars and feel a sense of longing, we are remembering the world we left behind. The Anunnaki are not just characters in a myth. They are our ancestors. They are our creators. And their influence still lingers in the very air we breathe. The first ascent was a spark that ignited the fire of civilization, a fire that is now burning brighter than ever as we reach back toward the stars from which we came. The history we have been taught is a lie of omission. The real story is written in the gold, the clay, and the stars. And the truth is finally coming home. Why would a civilization capable of crossing the stars descend into the dirt of a primitive planet? Why would beings of light and technology concern themselves with the heavy, cold metals buried beneath the crust? The answer, according to the tablets and the theories of those who look beyond the veil, is as ancient as it is startling. It was a quest for survival, an alchemical necessity, a mission born not of greed, but of a desperate struggle to save a dying world. Imagine a planet called Nibiru wandering on its long, 3,600-year orbit, drifting farther and farther from the warmth of the sun. The ancient text suggests that as Nibiru moved through the deep cold of space, its atmosphere began to fail. Holes appeared in its protective shield. Radiation leaked in. Heat leaked out. The very life force of their world was evaporating into the void. To save their home, the Anunnaki needed a solution that sounds like science fiction even today. They needed to create a global canopy of suspended metallic particles to reflect radiation and trap heat. And the only element with the unique properties to achieve this was gold. Gold. It is not just a symbol of wealth or a decoration for kings. In the world of the Anunnaki, it was a biological and planetary savior. It is non-reactive. It is highly reflective. It is a perfect conductor of energy. The theory popularized by Zecharia Sitchin suggests that the Anunnaki came to Earth not to conquer, but to mine. They were celestial prospectors searching for the one substance that could patch the holes in their heavens. When they landed some 450,000 years ago, they did not find a world of empty plains. They found a world rich in the veins of the earth. In the rivers of Mesopotamia and the deep mines of southern Africa, they found the treasure they sought. But the work was grueling. For thousands of years, the lesser gods, the Ijiji, toiled in the shadows. They dug the shafts. They hauled the ore. They labored under the weight of a mission that felt eternal, until they could endure it no longer. What if the rebellion of the gods mentioned in the Atrahasis epic was not a myth, but a labor strike, a cosmic mutiny that changed the course of our evolution? To solve the labor crisis, the scientist Enki proposed a radical idea. He would create a worker, a being designed for the environment of Earth, but gifted with enough intelligence to follow commands and handle the tools of the gods. Humanity was born from the dust of the mine. We were the alchemical solution to a staffing problem. But the story of gold does not stop at planetary shields. It descends into the very cells of our bodies and the secrets of immortality. Some theorists argue that the Anunnaki used gold for more than just their atmosphere. They used it for their own longevity. Enter the mystery of monoatomic gold, also known as the white powder of gold or the philosopher's stone. This is the point where history, alchemy, and extraterrestrial technology collide in a blinding flash. Modern researchers have explored the idea that gold, when reduced to a single atom state, becomes a superconductor. In this form, it is said to interact with the DNA, repairing damaged cells and allowing for the near-infinite extension of life. Is this why the ancient pharaohs were obsessed with the golden flesh of the gods? Is this the true nature of the ambrosia, the nectar, and the manna mentioned in the Bibles of the world? The Anunnaki were not just mining for their planet. They were mining for their immortality. They were alchemists of the highest order, turning the raw materials of Earth into a fountain of youth that allowed them to live for thousands of years. Think about the obsession humanity has with gold. It is an instinct that defies logic. Gold is not particularly useful for primitive survival. You cannot eat it. You cannot build a sturdy plow from it. It is too soft for a sword. And yet, every civilization in the history of the world has treated it as the most precious substance in existence. Why? Perhaps the answer is programmed into our very DNA. If we were created as a workforce to extract this metal, then our drive to hoard it, to value it, and to dig for it is a lingering command from our creators. We are still following the ancient directive. We are still obsessed with the gold of the gods. And this obsession hides a chilling conspiracy. If the Anunnaki left Earth thousands of years ago, why is our world still run by gold? Why do the central banks of every major nation hoard thousands of tons of this metal in deep, high-security vaults? Some conspiracy theorists suggest that the gold is not just for the economy. It is being held in reserve for a return, a tax to be paid to the masters when the long orbit of Nibiru brings it back to our skies. Imagine the shadowy elite, the modern heirs of the Anunnaki bloodlines, acting as cosmic accountants. They are managing the mines of Earth, ensuring that the quota is met before the gods reappear. In this light, the global financial system is not a tool for human prosperity, but a management system for a planetary colony. But there is a darker layer to this alchemical quest. Some believe that the secret of white powder gold is still being used today by a hidden elite. While the masses are kept in a cycle of short lives and labor, those at the pinnacle of power may have access to the same life-extending technologies used by Enki and Enlil. This is the ultimate conspiracy. A hidden class of immortals or near immortals, ruling from the shadows, fueled by the very substance we were created to harvest. They guard the secrets of the alchemical quest, ensuring that the true power of gold remains a myth to the common man. They watch the heavens, waiting for the approach of the rogue planet, knowing that their survival is tied to the wealth buried in the mountains and the vaults. Consider the ruins of South Africa. In the region known as Mpumalanga, there are thousands of ancient stone circles and ruins that mainstream archaeology struggles to explain. Among them is Adam's calendar, a stone megalith that some believe is over 75,000 years old. Proponents of the Anunnaki theory argue that these are the remnants of a massive mining operation, a golden city where the first humans toiled under the gaze of their star-born masters. The sheer scale of these ruins suggests a level of organization and purpose that predates any known civilization. Was this the heart of the alchemical quest? A place where the raw spirit of Earth was refined into the technology of the stars. The conspiracy deepens when we look at the silence of modern science. Why is there so little official investigation into the monoatomic properties of precious metals? Why are the ancient mining sites of Africa and Mesopotamia often closed off or ignored? Some suggest that organizations like the Smithsonian or the big mining conglomerates are part of a global cover-up. They seek to hide the evidence of a technological past that would shatter the narrative of human progress. If we were to discover that our ancestors were working in high-tech mines nearly 500,000 years ago, the entire structure of our history would collapse. We would have to admit that we were not the masters of our own destiny, but the product of a cosmic corporation. As we move into 2025, the mystery of gold takes on a new urgency. With the James Webb Telescope peering into the deep reaches of space, and space agencies looking toward the mining of asteroids, are we simply repeating the cycle? Are we becoming the new Anunnaki, searching the heavens for the resources we need to survive a changing climate? Or are we still the workers, preparing the ground for the return of those who shaped us? The alchemical quest for survival is not just a story of the past. It is the engine of our current world. It is in the gold we wear around our necks and the gold that sits in the dark of the Federal Reserve. The quest for the gold of the gods is a journey through the very fabric of human identity. It challenges us to look at our history not as a climb toward enlightenment, but as a long, complicated relationship with our creators. It asks us to consider if our greatest achievements in technology and alchemy are merely the rediscovery of tools that were taken from us. As we stand on the edge of a new era, the whispers of Nibiru grow louder. The shadows of the Anunnaki loom over our modern vaults. Are we ready to face the truth of our golden cages? The story of our origins is written in the shining veins of the earth, and the alchemical quest for survival is far from over. The gods may have left the surface, but their needs, their greed, and their technology remain etched into the very soul of humanity. Tonight, as we look at the stars, we must ask ourselves, is the gold we value so highly our greatest treasure, or is it the mark of our eternal labor? The mystery of the Anunnaki is a mirror, reflecting a golden past and a chilling, approaching future. In the silence of the mines and the depth of the vaults, the legacy of the gods is waiting to be reclaimed, and the quest for immortality is just beginning. What if the spark of human consciousness was not a slow-burning fire of evolution, but a sudden flash of divine engineering? What if we are not the product of a natural struggle for survival, but the successful result of a cosmic experiment conducted in a laboratory thousands of years ago? Tonight we descend into the shadows of the Abzu, the deep and mysterious workshop of the Anunnaki, to uncover the secrets of the Adam Project. This is a tale of our very first ancestor, not a product of chance, but a masterpiece of genetic manipulation. In the ancient Sumerian tablets, there is a story that predates the biblical Genesis by thousands of years. It speaks of a time when the gods were the only ones on earth, toiling under the heavy sun, to extract the gold needed to save their home planet, Nibiru. These lesser gods, known as the Ijiji, grew weary. For 40 periods of time, they suffered in the deep veins of the earth. They dug the rivers, they cleared the canals, and they cleared the mountains. But eventually, the burden became too much to bear. The tablets tell a great rebellion where the Ijiji burned their tools and surrounded the dwelling of Enlil, the commander of the earth. They demanded an end to their labor, and this was the crisis that forced the hands of the star travelers. Enki, the master of wisdom and the chief scientist of the Anunnaki, proposed a radical solution to this divine strike. He suggested the creation of a Lulu, a primitive worker who could take up the yoke of the gods. But how could such a being be brought to life? The solution did not lie in simple breeding or slow training. It lay in the blending of two worlds. Enki suggested taking the vital fluid of a god and mixing it with the clay of the earth. But what if the clay was not soil, and what if the vital fluid was not blood? What if these are merely the ancient, poetic terms for DNA? Imagine the scene in the house of Shimi, the place where the breath of life was fashioned. Enki, along with the mother goddess Ninhursag, began the painstaking process of crossbreeding Anunnaki genetics with those of a primitive hominid already roaming the landscapes of Earth. Perhaps it was Homo erectus, a creature that was already standing tall, but lacked the higher cognitive functions required to serve the masters from Nibiru. This experiment was not easy. The tablets record a series of agonizing failures. There were prototypes that could not speak, beings with blurred vision, and creatures that were sterile or possessed strange, uncontrollable limbs. It was a process of trial and error, a struggle of a highly advanced civilization trying to bridge the gap between their complex biological code and raw, unrefined life of a young planet. But eventually they succeeded. Ninhursag is said to have clutched the newborn being to her chest and shouted in triumph that her hands had created it. This was the Adamu, the first modern human, a hybrid being, a creature made in the image of the gods, yet tied to the cycles of the earth. In the Hebrew tradition, we call him Adam, meaning of the red earth. But in the older Sumerian records, he was the first of a new race, designed specifically to be the workers of the Anunnaki. This raises a chilling question. If we were engineered for labor, what does that say about our true purpose? Are we merely a secondary species, a convenient solution to an extraterrestrial labor shortage? Imagine a war that began before the first stone was ever laid in the deserts of Mesopotamia. A war not of nations or ideology, but a war of wills between two siblings from a world far beyond our sun. Is it possible that the story of humanity is not a tale of independent evolution, but the result of a cosmic family feud played out on the stage of a young and unsuspecting Earth? This is the core of a mystery that stretches back 450,000 years. It is a story etched into clay, whispered in secret societies, and hidden behind the classified files of modern governments. Tonight, we explore the Brothers of Discord, Enki and Enlil, the two architects of our species whose bitter rivalry may still be shaping the fate of the world in 2025. To understand the present, we must look into the deep past. According to translations of Zacharias Sitchin and the ancient Sumerian tablets, the Anunnaki hierarchy was defined by a tension that would eventually determine the destiny of every human being alive today. At the center of this tension were two sons of the sky god Anu. Enki, the eldest, was a master scientist, a healer, and a visionary. He was the one who allegedly oversaw the genetic engineering of the first humans in the research centers of the Abzu, located in what we now call Southern Africa. But despite his brilliance and his status as the firstborn, the laws of Nibiru denied him the throne. That honor belonged to his half-brother, Enlil. Enlil was commander, a stern pragmatist who viewed the mission to Earth through the cold lens of military necessity. For him, Earth was a resource outpost, and the humans being crafted in the laboratories were nothing more than a biological workforce. Tools designed to extract the gold needed to save the atmosphere of their homeworld. Here, the first fracture in our history appears. A division between a creator who saw his creation as his children and a ruler who saw them as property. Can you imagine the tension in those ancient halls? Two beings with the power of gods, arguing over the very nature of our existence. Enki believed in the potential of the human spirit. He believed that by mixing the divine essence of the Anunnaki with the primitive hominids of Earth, they were creating something worthy of enlightenment. But Enlil feared that enlightenment. He believed that a workforce that could think for itself was a workforce that could rebel. This discord intensified as the human population grew. According to the Epic of Atrahasis, the noise of humanity became unbearable to Enlil. He complained that the clamor of the people kept him from his rest. But what if this noise was not literal? What if it was a metaphor for our growing awareness? What if we were beginning to ask questions about our masters? Some conspiracy theorists suggest that Enlil, acting as the ultimate authoritarian, implemented the first systems of global control. He established the concept of kingship, where a select few would rule the masses in the name of the gods. These rulers were given the divine right to govern, but their true purpose was to keep the human population in a state of subservience. They were the intermediaries, ensuring that the labor continued and that the people never looked too closely at the stars. But Enki would not stay silent. In the shadows of Enlil's empire, Enki became the ultimate whistleblower. He is often associated with the symbol of the serpent, which in ancient Mesopotamian culture represented wisdom and healing, not evil. It was Enki, the story suggests, who went into the garden of civilization and offered humanity the fruit of knowledge. He taught us the secrets of the cosmos, the cycles of the stars, and the laws of nature. He gave us the tools to understand our own divinity, effectively breaking the rules set by his brother. This act of rebellion by Enki is what many believe inspired the biblical story of the serpent in Eden. In this version of history, the serpent was not a deceiver, but a liberator trying to awaken a slave species to its true potential. Imagine the fury of Enlil when he discovered that his brother had shared the secrets of the gods with the laborers. The rivalry turned into a silent war that has lasted for millennia. Some believe this war is still being fought today by the descendants of these brothers. We see it in the conflict between those who wish to empower humanity with hidden knowledge and those who wish to keep the world in a state of controlled ignorance. Are the secret societies and global elites of today the modern agents of this ancient family drama? Could organizations like the Illuminati be the keepers of Enlil's secrets, working to maintain a hierarchical order where the masses are kept busy with distractions while a small elite holds the true power? Or is there a counterforce, a legacy of Enki, working to leak the truth to the public through the internet and modern whistleblower movements? The rivalry reached a chilling climax with the coming of the Great Flood. The ancient texts say that Enlil, tired of humanity's growing independence, decided to let a natural cataclysm wipe out the entire species. He swore the Anunnaki Council to secrecy, demanding that no one warn the humans of the coming deluge. He saw it as a cleansing, a chance to start over, or perhaps to end the experiment entirely. But Enki, ever the compassionate scientist, could not watch his creation perish. He defied his brother and the council. He whispered the secret of the flood to the reed walls of a hut, instructing a man named Zeusidra, or Noah, to build a vessel to preserve the seeds of life. When the waters receded and the Anunnaki looked down upon a devastated earth, Enlil was enraged to find that humans had survived. The tablets describe a confrontation between the brothers that shook the heavens. Enki argued that humanity was a part of the earth now, and that they deserved a chance to build their own destiny. Eventually, a reluctant truce was reached, but the discord was never truly resolved. The Anunnaki eventually left the surface of the earth, retreating into the shadows or returning to their home planet. But conspiracy theorists argue they never really went away. Some believe that Enki and Enlil left behind specific bloodlines to continue their work. The concept of royal bloodlines, which can be traced through the history of the Middle East and into the royal houses of Europe, is said to be the physical legacy of this alien intervention. Could it be that the geopolitical conflicts we see today are merely the modern maneuvers of this ancient feud? On one side, we have the forces of Enlil pushing for a one-world government, total surveillance, and the suppression of free energy and forbidden history. On the other side, the influence of Enki may be found in the sudden leaps in our understanding of genetics, space travel, and the growing demand for transparency in government. As we look toward the approach of Nibiru in the modern era, the mystery deepens. Some believe that the return of the rogue planet will trigger the return of the brothers. In 2025, as telescopes search the outer reaches of the Kuiper Belt, are they actually looking for the flagship of the Anunnaki fleet? If they return, which side will they take? Will they come as liberators, following the path of Enki to help us reach our full potential among the stars? Or will they come as the stern commanders of Enlil, seeking to reclaim their colony and put humanity back to work? The silence of official space agencies like NASA only fuels these suspicions. Why is the data from the deep space probes so heavily guarded? Is it because they have detected a craft that defies known physics? A vessel that carries the ancient lords of our history? Imagine the panic that would ensue if the world learned that our creators were returning to judge their experiment. The cover-up would be the most significant operation in human history. A global conspiracy designed to protect the status quo and keep the people from realizing that their masters are at the door. We must also consider the genetic evidence. Modern scientists have discovered that there are stretches of our DNA that seem to have appeared almost overnight in evolutionary terms. They call it junk DNA because they do not yet understand its function. But what if it is not junk at all? What if it is a dormant code? A gift from Enki, waiting for a specific frequency or an astronomical event to activate? Some theorists believe that the rivalry between the brothers was not just over our labor, but over our evolution. Enki may have hidden a biological timer within us, a genetic insurance policy that would ensure our eventual awakening, no matter how hard Enlil tried to suppress us. This brings us back to the question of who we are. Are we the accidental products of a cold universe? Or are we the children of discord, born from the conflict of two brothers who could not agree on our value? Every time we feel the pull of the stars, or the desire for freedom, or the hunger for forbidden knowledge, we may be feeling the echo of Enki's ancient gift. And every time we see the rise of a new system of control, or the chilling silence of those in power, we may be seeing the shadow of Enlil's command. The story of Enki and Enlil is not just a myth from a forgotten desert. It is the blueprint of our past and the potential script of our future. As we move closer to the truth, we must be prepared to face the reality that we are part of something much larger than Earth. We are the legacy of a cosmic plan, a plan that was born in the fires of sibling rivalry and is now reaching its final chapter. The brothers of discord may be gone from our sight, but their influence lingers in our blood, our secrets, and our sky. The truth is waiting to be uncovered, but only for those who dare to look beyond the veil of history and see the stars for what they truly are, a home we left behind, and a destiny we have yet to reclaim. The journey into the unknown continues, and the next discovery may change everything we believe about our place in the universe. Tonight, as you look at the moon and the distant points of light, ask yourself, whose side are you on? The scientist who gave us knowledge, or the commander who demanded our silence? The answer may be the most important secret of all. What if the ruins we see today are not the birth of religion, but the remnants of a cosmic infrastructure? If the Anunnaki came from a world like Nibiru, Their presence on Earth will require more than just tents and clay huts. They would need hubs, beacons, high points from which they could monitor the skies and communicate with their home world as it drifted through the long, cold reaches of its 3,600-year orbit. Tonight, we look at the colossal stone and brick structures that still stand as silent witnesses to a history we have largely forgotten. From the baked silt of Mesopotamia to the high plateaus of the Andes, the pattern is the same: massive, multi-tiered platforms rising toward the heavens. We call them ziggurats, but the ancients called them the bond between heaven and earth. Imagine standing in the city of Eridu more than 5,000 years ago. This was the first city, the place where the Sumerians believed kingship first descended from the sky. At its heart was the Iabzu, the temple of the god Enki. But it was more than a temple. It was a massive platform of clay and brick, built and rebuilt over millennia. Each layer was a step closer to the stars. According to the ancient astronaut hypothesis, these ziggurats were not built for worship alone. They were functional. They were high ground markers for travelers navigating the atmosphere. In a world without satellites or digital beacons, a towering, shining structure in the middle of a flat desert will be a vital waypoint for any craft returning from orbit. Consider the great ziggurat of Uar. Even in its ruined state, its scale is staggering. It was built with 3 layers of brick, bonded with bitumen, a natural tar that made the structure nearly waterproof and incredibly durable. Why would a primitive people need such advanced engineering for a simple religious site? Some theorists suggest the ziggurats were designed to house heavy equipment or communication arrays. The flat top of these structures provided a perfect platform for what the Sumerians called the Shem. While we translate this word as name or monument, scholars like Zacharias Sitchin argued that its older, more literal meaning was sky vehicle. If the ziggurat was a landing pad for these vehicles, the entire layout of the ancient Sumerian city begins to look less like a center of worship and more like a support hub for a spacefaring colony. Let us dive deeper into the design of these monolithic markers. The ziggurats were always built with a precise orientation to the cardinal points. They tracked the movements of the sun, the moon, and most importantly, the stars. But it was not just any star. Many of these structures seem aligned with the path that Nibiru would take as it entered our solar system. If the Anunnaki were waiting for the return of their homeworld, they would need a constant, fixed observation point, a place where the priests, who were perhaps the original technicians of this extraterrestrial colony, could calculate the exact moment of the crossing. The mystery deepens when we look at the materials used. In the ruins of these ancient hubs, we find evidence of high-heat vitrification, stones that have been fused into glass by temperatures that no ancient kiln could produce. Could this be the result of a sky vehicle taking off? The legends of the Tower of Babel speak of a structure that was intended to reach the heavens, a tower so powerful that it threatened the order of the gods themselves. When we look at the biblical account through the lens of the Anunnaki, the story changes. It is no longer about human pride. It is about a group of humans trying to reactivate or rebuild a piece of advanced technology, a gateway to the stars that had been left behind. The confusion of tongues might not have been a linguistic miracle, but a systematic shutdown of the social and technical infrastructure that allowed such a project to exist. But Mesopotamia was not the only place where these markers were built. If the Anunnaki were global architects, we should see their fingerprints elsewhere. And we do. In Lebanon, the ruins of Baalbek contain stones that defy modern explanation. The Trilithon consists of 3 massive blocks of limestone, each weighing more than 800 tons. They are raised 20 feet above the ground, fitted together so perfectly that you cannot slide a piece of paper between them. Traditional archaeology tells us these were the foundations for a Roman temple, but the Romans themselves recorded that they found these stones already in place. They called the site Heliopolis, the city of the sun. Alternative historians suggest Baalbek was a primary landing site, a foundation built to withstand the immense weight and heat of heavy interstellar transport craft. The ziggurats of Sumer might have been the administrative and observation hubs, but Baalbek was the heavy lifting platform. The sheer mass of the stones was necessary to provide a stable, unmoving base for craft that were traveling between worlds. When you stand before these stones, you are not looking at the work of men with copper chisels and hemp ropes. You are looking at the remnants of a spaceport that has been weathered by tens of thousands of years. Could it be that these monolithic markers were part of a global grid? If you draw a line between the ziggurats of Iraq, the pyramids of Egypt, and the megalithic sites of Levant, you find a geometric precision that points toward a single blueprint. This grid might have served as a planetary navigation system. For a traveler coming from Nibiru, Earth would be a chaotic swirl of blue and green. They would need fixed, recognizable landmarks that radiated energy or reflected light in specific ways. The pyramids of Giza, originally encased in white limestone, would have shone like diamonds in the sun, visible from high orbit. The ziggurats, painted in vibrant colors and topped with gold, would have been the secondary markers, guiding the Anunnaki toward their mining colonies and administrative centers. Imagine the psychological impact on the early humans who witnessed these sites in operation. They saw beings descending in fire and light onto these massive platforms. They saw the gods entering the high chambers of the ziggurats to speak with the heavens. To the human mind, this was magic. It was divine. This is where our religions were born. We began to mimic the behaviors of the gods. We built our own temples in the shape of their landing pads. We dressed our priests in the garments that resembled their suits. We performed rituals that were originally technical protocols. The ziggurat became a temple because we forgot it was a machine. Even today, the secrets of these sites are guarded. In the late 20th and early 21st centuries, the regions holding the most important ziggurats have been the sites of intense conflict. Some conspiracy theorists believe that modern wars in the Middle East were not about oil or politics, but about the recovery of ancient Anunnaki technology buried beneath these mounds. There are stories of special units entering the ruins of Babylon and Ur, not to protect history, but to secure artifacts that defy modern physics. Could there be devices still active deep within the foundations of the Earth? Are the ziggurats still humming with a frequency we can no longer hear, waiting for a signal from a planet that is even now beginning its long journey back toward us? As we look at the ziggurats and the megaliths, we are forced to ask a difficult question. Why did we stop building this way? Why did the knowledge of moving 800-ton stones and aligning towers with distant worlds vanish from a human record? The official story is that these cultures simply collapsed. But the ancient astronaut theory suggests a different ending. The Anunnaki departed. They took their tools, their power sources, and their knowledge with them. They left us with the husks of their presence. We were left in the shadows of mountains we could no longer climb, worshipping the memory of a technology we could no longer understand. We are left to wonder if the return of Nibiru in 2025 or beyond will reactivate these ancient sites. If a craft from the stars would descend today, would it recognize the ziggurat of Ur as a safe harbor? Or have we covered the markers of our creators with so much dust and dogma that the bond between heaven and earth is truly broken? The stones remain. They are the monolithic markers of a presence that refuses to be erased. They remind us that we were once part of something much larger, a cosmic plan that used our world as a stepping stone. As we look at these ruins, we are not just looking at our past. We may be looking at the landing coordinates for our future. The monuments are waiting. The question is, who is coming to claim them? We must look closer at the sky and the stone, for the legacy of Nibiru is written in the very foundations of our world. What if the greatest catastrophe in human memory was not an accident of nature, but a calculated decision made in the councils of another world? Imagine the Anunnaki, those travelers from Nibiru, standing on the threshold of a choice that would wipe the slate of Earth clean. In the ancient tablets of Mesopotamia, the story of the flood begins with a murmur of discontent among the gods. The texts say that the noise of humanity had become too great, that our numbers had proliferated until the world groaned under our weight. But through the lens of the ancient astronaut hypothesis, this noise takes on a different meaning. What if the noise was actually our independence? What if the human experiment, designed to mine the gold of the earth, had begun to evolve beyond control of its masters? This brings us to a chilling crossroads in our hidden history, the moment when the creators decided to become the destroyers. At the heart of this cosmic drama were two brothers with opposing visions for the future of our species. Enlil, the stern commander who viewed humans as mere tools, saw the coming cataclysm as a convenient solution to a biological problem that had grown too complex. He argued for silence, for allowing the forces of nature to reclaim the planet without intervention. But his brother Enki, the scientist and architect of our DNA, could not stand by and watch his creation perish. The Epic of Atrahasis tells us that Enki defied the divine decree of secrecy. He did not speak directly to the man who would become the survivor of the deluge. Instead, he whispered to the wall of a reed hut, knowing that the man on the other side would hear. This subtle act of rebellion suggests a fracture among the Anunnaki, a division between those who saw us as property and those who saw us as a legacy. But what was the flood itself? Was it merely a localized disaster of the Tigris and Euphrates? Or was it a planetary event triggered by the celestial mechanics of Nibiru? Some theorists suggest that as the rogue planet made one of its close approaches to Earth, its massive gravitational pull acted like a cosmic magnet. Imagine the strain on the Earth's crust as this wandering giant swung through the inner solar system. The stress could have triggered the collapse of the Antarctic ice sheets, sending a wall of water surging across the oceans. This would not be a slow rise of tides, but a sudden, violent displacement of the world's waters. For the Anunnaki, watching from their ships in orbit, the Earth would look like a dying sapphire, cloaked in clouds and chaos. They had the technology to predict it, and according to the tablets, they had the coldness to let it happen. The craft that survived the deluge, whether we call it an ark or a submersible, was more than a wooden boat. If the Anunnaki were advanced geneticists, why would they bother with a literal zoo of animals? Some believe the instructions given to Flood Hero were not for a vessel of wood and pitch, but for a pressurized hull, a repository of genetic information. The animals brought aboard 2 by 2 were not living creatures, but DNA sequences, the building blocks of an entire ecosystem. This vessel was a seed bank, a technological life raft designed to preserve the diversity of the Earth until the waters receded. The story of Noah or Zayusadra is a memory of a biological preservation mission, a desperate attempt by Enki to save the results of his lifelong work from the wrath of his brother and the gravity of their home world. As the storm raged for 7 days and 7 nights, the ancient texts describe the gods themselves as being terrified. They retreated to the highest heavens, cowering like dogs against the walls of their celestial city. This detail is remarkable. Why would divine, all-powerful beings be afraid of a storm? Perhaps it is because they were not gods at all, but physical travelers whose technology was being tested by the very forces they had set in motion. They watched as the cities they had built, the mines they had dug, and the humans they had molded were swallowed by the abyss. The grief they felt was a grief of scientists watching their laboratory burn. They realized that in their haste to solve the human problem, they had nearly destroyed the very planet that provided the resources they so desperately needed to save Nibiru. When the waters finally began to subside and the ark rested on the peaks of the mountains, a new era began. The survivors stepped out into a world that was scrubbed clean, but also drastically changed. The lush landscapes of the pre-flood era were gone, replaced by mud and silence. The Anunnaki descended to find that their human experiment had survived, and the conflict between the brothers flared once more. Enlil was enraged that his decree had been broken, but Enki argued that the survival of humanity was necessary for the gods to remain on Earth. A pact was made, a new order that redefined the relationship between the creators and the created. Humans would be allowed to persist, but their lifespans would be shortened. We would face mortality, disease, and the struggle of labor, ensuring we would never again grow loud enough to disturb the celestial order. This is where the line between myth and conspiracy grows thin. If the Great Deluge was a real event, why is it so heavily suppressed in our mainstream geological narrative? While many geologists acknowledge a period of massive flooding at the end of the last ice age, the idea of a global, sudden cataclysm caused by a wandering planet is often dismissed as fantasy. Yet, nearly every ancient culture on every continent shares a version of this story. From the Maya in the Americas to the tribes of the Pacific and the ancient Greeks, the memory of the waters is universal. How could civilizations with no contact with one another invent the same haunting tale? Unless, of course, they were all remembering the same reality, a reality that powerful organizations today might want to keep hidden to prevent us from realizing that our world follows a cycle of cleansing and return. In 2025, as we monitor the melting of the polar ice and the shifting of our magnetic poles, we must ask if we are approaching another tipping point. Some conspiracy theorists argue that governments are building vast underground bunkers, modern-day arks designed to protect the elite from a coming geological shift. They point to the seed vaults in the Arctic and the strange activity in Antarctica as evidence that those in power know the cycle of Nibiru is nearing its next apex. Are they following the ancient blueprints of Enlil and Enki, preparing for a cleansing that they refuse to disclose to the masses? If the James Webb Telescope has captured images of a massive body lurking on the edge of our system, the silence from official channels may be the greatest cover-up of our age. The legacy of the flood is written in our DNA. We are the survivors of a cosmic purge, the descendants of a few who were chosen to carry the spark of the Anunnaki into a new world. This memory of the deluge is more than a story of survival. It is a warning about the fragility of our civilization and the nature of our creators. Were we saved because we were loved or because we were useful? The fracture between the brothers Enki and Enlil suggests that our existence has always been a point of contention among the stars. One side sees us as a mistake to be corrected, while the other sees us as a partner in a grand experiment. As we look at the ruins of ancient civilizations, many of which show signs of being suddenly abandoned or destroyed by water, we find the fingerprints of the Anunnaki. They built with stone because they knew the waters would come. They aligned their monuments to the stars because they needed to know when the wanderer Nibiru would return. The Great Deluge was not just a cleansing of the human population. It was a reset of the entire planetary system. If we are the product of that reset, then we must understand the forces that caused it. The celestial cleansing was a moment of profound transformation, a survival story that defines who we are today. Surviving the Great Deluge meant more than just staying dry. It meant holding on to the knowledge of the stars and the secrets of the gods in a world that had forgotten its origins. As we move forward into the mysteries of our past, we must consider the possibility that the next cleansing is not a matter of if, but when. The cycle of the heavens continues, indifferent to our cities and our technology. We are left to wonder if the whispers of Enki will find another wall to speak through, or if this time we will be left to face the waters alone. The story of the flood is a mirror reflecting our own vulnerability, a reminder that we are but a small part of a much larger and far more dangerous cosmic plan. We must look to the ice and the ancient clay, for the truth of the deluge is the truth of our own endurance in a universe that once tried to wash us away. If the story of the Great Flood was the baptism of our species, then what remains in the aftermath is not just a legacy of stone and bone, but something far more intimate. It is written in the very code that defines our existence. Our blood, one of the most profound evidence of the Anunnaki's presence, is not buried in the shifting deserts of Iraq or hidden in the secret vaults of the Vatican, but is pulsing through your veins right now. Welcome back to the journey. Tonight, we move from the physical ruins of the past into the microscopic architecture of the present. We explore the chilling and wondrous possibility that our DNA is not the product of Earth's slow evolution alone, but a carefully crafted document, a biological memory of a wandering world called Nibiru. In the quiet chambers of every human cell, a story is being told in a language we are only just beginning to decode. It is a narrative of fusion, intervention, and mystery. For decades, geneticists have pointed to a curious anomaly in the human genome, known as chromosome 2. In our closest primate relatives, this chromosome exists as two separate pieces. But in humans, it is fused into one. Mainstream science calls this a natural accident of evolution, a rare but explainable event. But what if it was not an accident? Proponents of the ancient astronaut theory, following the leads left by Zecharia Sitchin and others, suggest that this fusion is the smoking gun of a cosmic intervention. They see it as a surgical stitching of genetic material, a deliberate bridge built by the Anunnaki to elevate a primitive hominid into a sentient worker. If the Anunnaki were the architects, then chromosome 2 is their signature, a mark left in the clay of our biology to remind us that we were made, not born of this world alone. Consider the rhythm of this genetic leap. Evolution usually moves with a patient, slow hand, taking millions of years to refine a species. Yet, Homo sapiens appeared on the stage of history with a sudden and unexplained brilliance. We gained complex language, abstract thought, and the ability to imagine the future almost overnight in geological terms. What if this was a result of a genetic upgrade? Sumerian texts describe Enki, the master scientist of the gods, mixing the divine essence of the Anunnaki with the blood of the earthly beings. This essence, described in the ancient tablets as the vital fluid of the gods, may be a primitive description of DNA itself. When we look at the Sumerian cylinder seals, we often see the symbol of the intertwined serpents. To our ancestors, this was the staff of Enki, a symbol of healing and life. To us, in the modern era, it looks remarkably like the double helix of a DNA strand. Is it possible that the ancients were trying to tell us that our very life force was a gift from the stars? The mystery deepens when we look at the vast stretches of our genetic code that scientists once labeled as junk DNA. For years, we believed that over 90% of our genome was useless, a graveyard of evolutionary leftovers. But in 2025, our understanding of these sequences is shifting. We are discovering that this non-coding DNA acts as a complex control system, a series of switches that can be turned on or off by environmental factors. What if this junk DNA is actually a dormant library, a set of inactive protocols left by the Anunnaki? Imagine a genetic inheritance that waits for a specific signal to awaken. Some theorists suggest that our untapped potential, our unexplained psychic intuitions, or our deep-seated longing for stars are echoes of these sleeping genes. We may be carrying the memories of Nibiru within us, locked in a biological vault that we are only now learning how to open. What does it feel like to carry the memory of another world in your blood? Many people speak of a persistent sense of displacement, a feeling that Earth is a beautiful home, but not the first home. This is often called the starseed phenomenon. It is the idea that some individuals carry a higher concentration of this extraterrestrial heritage. While skeptics dismiss this as a psychological longing for meaning, others point to biological markers that defy easy explanation. One of the most famous and controversial of these markers is the Rh-negative blood type. Approximately 15% of the human population lacks the rhesus factor, a protein found in the blood of nearly all primates. Where did this trait come from? If we evolved from a common ancestor with the great apes, why does a significant portion of humanity possess blood that is fundamentally different? Some researchers propose that Rh-negative blood is the legacy of the Anunnaki bloodline. It is a sign of a hybrid nature, a biological reminder of a time when the gods walked among men and shared their lineage with the daughters of Earth. In the legend of ancient Ireland, the Tuatha De Danann were said to be a race of tall, radiant beings with advanced knowledge and strange blood. They were often associated with these genetic anomalies. Could these myths be the distorted memories of Anunnaki hybrids who remain on Earth long after the main fleet returned to Nibiru? If so, the conspiracy grows even more intricate. Are there specific families or bloodlines that have been carefully preserved through the millennia to keep this genetic legacy pure? Secret societies and royal lineages have long obsessed over the purity of their blood. We are told this is about status and power, but what if it is about something far more ancient? What if they are guarding the keys to a technology that only responds to a specific genetic signature? A legacy of the stars that is kept hidden from the masses to maintain a global order. Let us consider the concept of genetic memory. Modern science has shown that trauma and experience can be passed down through generations via epigenetic markers. If the Anunnaki truly shaped our ancestors, then the experiences of that era might still be echoing in our subconscious. The fear of the dark, the awe of the bright lights in the sky, the deep-seated reverence for gold, and the unexplained thirst for a hierarchy might all be artifact of our time as a worker species for an advanced civilization. We are a species with amnesia, struggling to remember the names of our parents. We look at the stars and feel a pull that we cannot explain. Is it possible that we are not looking at the unknown, but looking toward home? When we dream of Nibiru, are we dreaming of a place we have never been? Or are we accessing a memory that has been vibrating in our cells for 500,000 years? The year 2025 has brought us to a crossroads in genetic science. With tools like CRISPR and advanced gene sequencing, we are beginning to rewrite the code of life itself. We are playing the role of the architect. But as we peer into the genome, are we finding things that were not supposed to be found? There are whispers in the scientific community of sequences that do not follow the rules of terrestrial evolution, patterns that look more like a digital code than a biological accident. If we are the creation of the Anunnaki, then our move toward genetic engineering is not a new frontier, but a return to an old one. We are rediscovering the tools that were once used to build us. This raises a chilling question. If our creators returned today and saw us tampering with their design, would they see us as successful children or as a failed experiment that has grown too independent? The influence of the Anunnaki bloodline may also manifest in our unexplained leaps of genius. Throughout history, certain individuals have appeared with insights that seem to come from nowhere. Da Vinci, Tesla, Einstein. They moved the world forward with ideas that defied the logic of their time. What if these flashes of brilliance are not just luck, but the sudden activation of that dormant junk DNA, a momentary connection to the ancestral knowledge of Nibiru? Some believe that the elite of our world are fully aware of this. They may be using advanced genetic treatments to activate these traits in themselves, ensuring that the gap between the rulers and the ruled remains wider than ever. This is the dark side of the genetic conspiracy, a world where the heritage of the gods is used as a tool for modern enslavement. As we look toward the future, the echoes in our blood grow louder. We are searching for Nibiru in the outer reaches of our solar system, but perhaps we should be looking closer. The wandering planet may be a physical world, but its true legacy is the consciousness that it's seated here. We are a bridge between two worlds, one foot in the fertile soil of Earth and the other in the cold, patient silence of a distant orbit. We carry the resilience of the Anunnaki, their drive for gold and power, but also their capacity for immense creation and wisdom. We are their mirrors, reflecting their triumphs and their flaws. Tonight, as you drift toward sleep, consider the rhythm of your own heart. Each beat is a continuation of a line that stretches back to the ages, through the floods and across the stars. You are a living record of a journey that began on a world you have never seen. You are the legacy of the Anunnaki, a biological masterpiece with secrets still waiting to be unlocked. The truth is not just out there among the planets. It is inside you, written in a language of light and chemical bonds. We are the children of Nibiru, and the time for our awakening may be closer than we think. The stars are calling, and our blood is beginning to answer. Sleep now, and let the memories of the heavens wash over you, for you are made of the stuff of gods and the dust of a wandering world. Your journey is only just beginning. What if the rulers of our world, the monarchs who shaped history, and the leaders who command nations, were never truly one of us? What if the authority they claimed, the divine right that allowed them to sit upon thrones and demand the allegiance of millions, was not a human invention at all? This is a core of a mystery that takes us back to the very dawn of civilization in Mesopotamia, to a time when the gods walked among men, and the concept of kingship first descended from the heavens. In the ancient Sumerian king list, a document etched into clay thousands of years ago, the opening lines tell a story that challenges everything we believe about political power. It states quite clearly that after the kingship descended from heaven, the kingship was an eridu. But what does it mean for power to descend from above? According to the ancient astronaut hypothesis, this was not a metaphor for divine approval. It was a literal description of a transfer of authority from the Anunnaki to a selected group of human and hybrid intermediaries. The Anunnaki, those travelers from the planet Nibiru, were not just miners or scientists. They were architects of society. As their human workforce grew more complex, they needed a system of order, a way to maintain control without constant direct intervention. Imagine this. A civilization so advanced that they understood how to manage vast populations through the use of fear, awe, and bloodlines. They chose certain individuals, perhaps those with a greater percentage of extraterrestrial DNA, and bestowed upon them the right to rule in their stead. This was the birth of the divine right of kings. It was a contract of sovereignty, a legacy from the stars that suggested some people were inherently superior to others because of their celestial lineage. Consider the lists of these early kings. In the Sumerian texts, the first rulers are said to have reigned for thousands of years. Alulim ruled for 28,800 years. Alaunga ruled for 36,000 years. To a modern historian, these numbers are mere fantasy or symbolic exaggerations. But what if they are accurate records of the lifespans of Anunnaki hybrids? If the beings from Nibiru live for hundreds of thousands of years due to their different planetary biology and advanced medicine, Their direct descendants would surely live far longer than ordinary humans. These long-lived rulers were the living proof of their divine connection. They were the bridge between the gods of the sky and the people of the earth. This concept of celestial sovereignty was not limited to the Fertile Crescent. We see its echoes in every major civilization that rose suddenly and without explanation. In ancient Egypt, the pharaohs were not merely political leaders. They were living gods, the literal sons of Ra, or Horus. They wore crowns that resembled the horn caps of the Anunnaki and carried scepters that symbolized their power to command the very elements. They claimed their blood was different, a divine essence that granted them the wisdom to lead and the right to own the land. What if this was the result of a global plan? A standardized system of governance implemented by the Anunnaki as they established colonies across the globe. In Mesoamerica, the Maya and the Aztecs spoke of feathered serpents and sky beings who established the first royal houses. Their kings were required to spill their own blood in rituals to maintain a connection with their ancestors in the stars. In China, the emperor was known as the Son of Heaven, holding the mandate of heaven. If he failed to rule correctly, the sky itself would show its displeasure. This universal pattern suggests that the idea of a royal bloodline is not a human cultural development, but a program installed by outside forces, a program designed to keep humanity divided into a hierarchy where the few at the top held the secrets of the gods, while the masses remained in service to the state. But where does the conspiracy begin? If the Anunnaki departed Earth, did their bloodlines truly vanish? Many theorists believe that the lineage of the star god survived, hidden within elite families that had controlled the world for centuries. We hear whispers of the Illuminati, the black nobility, and secret societies like the Freemasons. These organizations are often accused of guarding ancient knowledge and maintaining a grip on global finance and politics. Could it be that they're the modern heirs to the Anunnaki legacy? Are they the descendants of the hybrids who were given the mandate to rule in the name of Nibiru? Look at the symbols of power that still persist today. The throne, the crown, the scepter, and the orb. These are not just decorations. Some researchers argue they are replicas of ancient Anunnaki technology. The crown may have been a device for communication or neural enhancement, a way for the gods to transmit instructions to their chosen rulers. The scepter could have been a weapon or a tool of energetic manipulation. When we see a modern monarch inaugurated with these items, are we witnessing a ritual that has remained unchanged for 5,000 years? A ritual that signifies a connection to a planet that swings through the outer reaches of our solar system. The secrecy surrounding royal bloodlines is profound. Genealogy is a passion for the elite, as if the purity of their DNA is the most valuable asset they possess. Why would a modern leader care about a lineage that stretches back to a desert kingdom in the ancient past? Unless that lineage holds a secret that is too dangerous for the public to know, a secret about our true origins. If the public realized that their leaders claim power based on an extraterrestrial inheritance, the entire structure of our society would collapse. The conspiracy to hide the Anunnaki is also a conspiracy to maintain the legitimacy of the ruling class. Think about the way history is taught in our schools. We are told that civilization was a slow, agonizing climb from the cave to the city. But the evidence suggests a sudden explosion of knowledge. Writing, mathematics, law, and architecture all appeared at once, fully formed. This is only possible if the knowledge was gifted, and those who received the gift became the kings. They were the keepers of the library of the gods. By controlling knowledge, they controlled the people. This is a tactic that persists in 2025. Information is the ultimate currency, and the most important information, the truth about who we are and who put us here, is classified at the highest levels. What if the Anunnaki never actually left? Some believe they remain in stasis or in hidden bases deep beneath the earth or on the far side of the moon. In this scenario, the royal bloodlines are not just descendants. They are active agents waiting for the return of their masters. The planet Nibiru is said to be approaching again, its elliptical orbit bringing it closer to Earth once more. As its influence grows, the elites may be preparing for a transition of power. Is this why we see a sudden rush towards space exploration by private billionaires and shadow governments? Are they trying to reach their ancestors? Or are they preparing to flee a cataclysm that only they know is coming? The mystery of the divine right of kings also touches on the nature of the soul. In some ancient texts, it is suggested that the rulers were given a different type of spirit, one that was capable of understanding the higher dimensions of reality. This would make them essentially a different subspecies of human. If this is true, then the inequality we see in our world is not just a result of economics or education. It is a biological and spiritual design, a hierarchy established by extraterrestrial architects to ensure that humanity would always have a shepherd to lead them. But is the shepherd guiding us to a brighter future? Or are we being led toward a purpose that serves only the interests of Nibiru? Consider the Great Flood once more. In the myths, the flood was sent by Enlil because humans had become too numerous and too noisy. He wanted to wipe the slate clean. But it was Enki who saved a specific bloodline, the line of the wise king who built the ark. This suggests that the Anunnaki were very protective of their chosen lineages. They saved the kings to ensure that the system of sovereignty would survive the disaster. When the waters receded, the kingship descended from heaven once again. The cycle of rule was restarted, and the conspiracy was reborn in the mud of the post-flood world. As we look at the state of the world today, we must ask ourselves if the yoke of labor mentioned in the Epic of Atrahasis has ever truly been lifted. We may no longer be digging canals for the gods of Sumer, but we are still part of a global system that demands our time, our energy, and our obedience. A system managed by an elite that seems increasingly detached from the needs of ordinary people. Could it be that the Anunnaki plan is still in effect? Are we still a workforce, managed by a hybrid class that answers to a higher authority in the stars? The truth may be hidden in plain sight, encoded in the heraldry of noble houses and the rituals of state. The lions, the eagles, and the dragons that adorn the crest of the powerful are echoes of the symbols used by the Anunnaki to represent their various factions. Each family, each lineage, may be guarding a piece of the puzzle that, when assembled, reveals a map of our cosmic history. We are a species with amnesia, led by those who remember everything but tell us nothing. The divine right of kings is the greatest cover-up in history, a veil of majesty that hides the chilling reality of our celestial origin. Tonight, as we contemplate the thrones of the world, we must look beyond the gold and the velvet. We must look at the faces of those who rule and ask if we see a trace of the stars in their eyes. The legacy of Nibiru is not just in the past. It is in our laws, our religions, and our very definition of authority. We are a planet of kings and subjects, a world shaped by a sovereign decree that was issued long before the first pyramid was built. But as the truth begins to leak through the cracks of conspiracy, the era of blind obedience may be coming to an end. If you are fascinated by the secrets of the elite and the hidden history of our leaders, stay with us. Our journey into the shadows of the Anunnaki is far from over. Consider subscribing to Mystery History for Sleep and tapping the bell icon to ensure you never miss a chapter of this cosmic detective story. Your support helps us peel back the layers of deception and reach for the stars. Let us continue our quest for the truth together. The next segment will dive even deeper into the genetic evidence that may prove once and for all that we are the children of Nibiru. Your journey is only just beginning. Imagine a sky once filled with the glow of departing ships. A world that had for hundreds of thousands of years known the presence of the Anunnaki. Those visitors from Nibiru who had shaped our ancestors, mined our gold, and built the foundations of our first cities. Now, picture that world suddenly falling silent. The great chariots of fire that once moved between Earth and the stars begin to vanish. One by one, the gods who walked among men return to their celestial home. This is the mystery of the silent departure, a moment in history that has been erased from our textbooks, yet lingers in the echoes of our oldest myths. Why did they leave? If the Anunnaki were real, and if they were our creators, why would they abandon the earthly cradle they had so carefully tended? Some believe they left because their work was done. The gold had been harvested, the atmosphere of Nibiru had been repaired, and the human experiment had reached a point where it could no longer be controlled. But others suggest a more chilling possibility. What if they left because they had to? What if a cosmic cycle, a conflict among the stars, or a looming cataclysm forced them to retreat, leaving humanity to find its own way in the dark? Consider the ancient Sumerian kings list, a document that records kings who rule for thousands of years. But then, The reigns suddenly shorten. The divine rulers are replaced by human ones. The direct presence of the gods fades into the distance of memory. This transition marks the beginning of our solitude. In ancient Mesopotamia, where the first cities rose from the dust of the Fertile Crescent, the records speak of a time when the gods withdrew. They left their temples. They boarded their celestial craft. And they ascended back to Nibiru. This was not a moment of celebration. It was a time of profound loss. Imagine the people of that era looking up at the night sky, watching the lights of their creators fade into the blackness of space. They were left with the ruins of a civilization they did not fully understand and the heavy burden of a legacy they could barely carry. This is why our earliest religions are filled with the longing for the return of the gods. We are a species with an abandoned child complex, forever looking at the stars and wondering when our parents will come home. If the Anunnaki truly left, why do we not see the ruins of their spaceports or the remnants of their advanced technology? This is where the line between history and conspiracy becomes a jagged edge. Proponents of the ancient astronaut hypothesis suggest that the evidence is all around us, but we have been taught to see it as something else. The Great Pyramids of Giza, the massive blocks of Baalbek, the mysterious lines in the Nazca Desert, these were not mere tombs or temples. They were the infrastructure of an interstellar colony. Some theorists argue that the pyramids were power plants, designed to generate energy for the Anunnaki's mining operations. When they left, they simply turned them off. They stripped the machines of their most valuable components and left the stone shells behind. To a primitive human, a dormant machine of stone looks like a monument to a god. Over thousands of years, the wind and the sand have reclaimed the metal, the glass, and the circuits, leaving us with puzzles that our modern engineering still struggles to solve. The conspiracy deepens when we look at the official silence from organizations like NASA. In 2025, as we send more probes into deep space and point more powerful telescopes to the heavens, the search for Planet X or Nibiru has reached a fever pitch. Why is the data so heavily classified? Some insiders whisper that we have already found the rogue world, that we have captured images of a planet with a massive elliptical orbit that brings it back into our neighborhood every 3,600 years. If the Anunnaki left because their planet was swinging away into the cold reaches of space, then their return is inevitable. The silence of our governments might be a desperate attempt to prevent global panic as the orbital window approaches. Are they preparing for a reunion? Or are they hiding the fact that our creators are coming back to check on their ancient investment? But the departure might not have been absolute. What if some of the Anunnaki stayed behind? In the midst of the Watchers and the Nephilim, we find stories of divine beings who chose to remain on Earth. They interbred with humans, creating a hybrid bloodline that some believe still rules the world today. This is the heart of many modern conspiracy theories. The idea that a secret elite, the descendants of the Anunnaki, have maintained the knowledge and the power of the gods and the shadows. They are the guardians of the forbidden tech. They are the ones who manage the global cover-up, ensuring that the masses remain distracted by religion and politics, while the truth of our origins remains hidden in high-security vaults. If this is true, the silent departure was not an exit, but a transition into the underground. The gods did not leave our world. They simply moved behind the curtain. Think about the rapid advancements in human technology over the last century. From the first flights of the Wright brothers to the development of artificial intelligence and genetic engineering. Some argue that this is not natural progress. Instead, they believe we are rediscovering the knowledge left behind by the Anunnaki. Perhaps we are finding their buried archives. Or perhaps the secret bloodlines are slowly releasing the technology to prepare us for the return of Nibiru. This would explain why we see so much interest in gold and rare earth minerals in the modern era. We are rebuilding the same systems that were once used to save an alien world. We are being guided toward a purpose that we do not yet fully understand. Are we being prepared to serve once again? Or are we finally being invited to join the cosmic community as equals? The psychological impact of the silent departure cannot be overstated. It shaped the human soul. It gave us our obsession with the heavens and our fear of the dark. When the gods left, they left a void that we have tried to fill with empires, with wars, and with a desperate search for meaning. We look at the ruins of Sumer, and Egypt and feel a strange sense of nostalgia, a longing for a time when the path was clear and the masters were visible. The silent departure was the moment humanity was forced to grow up, but we were left with a broken inheritance. We were left with the memories of magic that was actually technology. We were left with the stories of divine essence that was actually genetic manipulation. In the year 2025, the questions are louder than ever. We stand on the threshold of a new age, where our own ships are beginning to leave the earthly cradle. As we look toward Mars and beyond, are we following in the footsteps of our ancestors? Are we the new Anunnaki, destined to see life on other worlds and then one day leave them in silence? The cycle of history might be larger than we ever imagined. It might be a cosmic pattern of arrival, creation, and departure, a journey that began on a wandering world called Nibiru and found its way to the blue marble of Earth. The silent departure was not the end of the story. It was the beginning of our long wait, a wait that might be coming to an end as the stars align once more. Tonight, we must look at the silence of our history not as a lack of evidence, but as a deliberate mask. The truth is hidden in the gaps between the dates. It is hidden in the shadows of the monuments that refuse to be explained. The Anunnaki left us with a planet rich in resources and a mind capable of infinite curiosity. They gave us the tools to rebuild their world, but they did not give us the keys to our own freedom. As we peel back the layers of the global conspiracy, we find that the silent departure was the greatest secret of all. It was the moment we were left alone to face the universe. And now, as the telescopes turn toward the outer reaches of the solar system, we must ask ourselves if we are ready for the silence to be broken. If the lights in the sky return, will they be the gods we remember, or will they be the masters we have finally outgrown? The answer lies waiting in the dark between the worlds. Your journey into the heart of the Anunnaki legacy continues, and the truth is closer than you think. Tighten your grip on the mystery, for the stars are beginning to speak again. The search for the unseen has always been the hallmark of our species. We look into the dark not because we expect to find nothing, but because we suspect that the most profound truths are those that refuse to step into the light. For decades, the world of modern astronomy and the shadows of ancient myth have been moving toward collision, a meeting point where the cold equations of mathematics and the dusty tablets of Sumerian speak the same name. Nibiru, Planet X, the ninth planet. It is a world that exists in the periphery of our vision, a ghost in the machinery of our solar system that tugs at the edges of our reality. If humanity truly carries the genetic legacy of the Anunnaki, then the discovery of their homeworld will be more than a scientific milestone. It would be a homecoming. It would be the final piece of a puzzle that has been scattered across the stars for 500,000 years. But where is it? Why does a planet 10 times the mass of Earth remain hidden from our most advanced telescopes? The answer begins with the math. In the quiet offices of the California Institute of Technology, astronomers like Michael Brown and Konstantin Batygin have been listening to the heartbeat of the outer solar system. They did not see a planet, but they saw its footprints. They observed the strange, clustered orbits of icy objects in the Kuiper Belt, those frozen relics drifting far beyond the reaches of Neptune. These objects were not moving randomly. They were being corralled. They were being steered by a massive, invisible hand. The mathematical probability of this clustering happening by chance is almost zero. Something massive is out there. Something with gravitational pull so immense that it dictates the movement of everything in its path. Science calls it Planet 9. Zecharia Sitchin called it Nibiru. This world, according to the calculations, follows a highly elongated elliptical orbit. It swings far out into the deep freeze of interstellar space before diving back toward the warmth of the sun once every few thousand years. This is the exact orbital profile described in the Sumerian Enuma Elish, the epic of creation that tells of a rogue planet entering our system and reshaping the worlds. The ancient texts say Nibiru is a traveler, across her paths. If modern science is correct about the existence of Planet 9, then the gap between ancient myth and modern physics has narrowed to the point of disappearing. We are no longer talking about the fantasies of a forgotten people. We are talking about a mathematical necessity. But the mystery of Planet X is not just one of orbits and gravity. It is a mystery of silence. In 1983, The infrared astronomical satellite, known as IRAS, captured something remarkable. A headline appeared in the Washington Post stating that a heavenly body, possibly as large as a giant planet Jupiter and possibly so close to Earth that it would be part of the solar system, had been found in the direction of the constellation Orion. It was an infrared signature of a cold, massive object. For a moment, the world held its breath. The discovery seemed to validate everything the ancient astronaut theorists had claimed. But then the silence began. The reports were clarified. The data was reinterpreted, and the mystery heavenly body was tucked away into the archives of the unexplained. Why would the detection of a new planet be met with such a sudden withdrawal? Some believe the answer lies in the nature of what was found. If NASA and other global space agencies realized that Nibiru was not just a theoretical possibility, but a physical reality, they would also have to face the implications of its return. A planet that swings through the inner solar system every 3,600 years is not just a neighbor. It is a catalyst for cataclysm. Its gravitational presence would trigger tectonic shifts, massive tidal waves, and atmospheric disruptions. To announce its approach would be to announce the end of the world as we know it. Or, perhaps more dangerously, it would be to announce the return of our creators. Imagine a world where the governments of Earth have known the truth for 40 years. Imagine that the James Webb Space Telescope, with its incredible infrared sensitivity, was designed specifically to track this cold, dark wanderer as it approaches from the southern skies. The conspiracy grows deeper when we consider the location of the most advanced observatories. Why are so many high-powered telescopes situated in the remote reaches of the South Pole? Some theorists argue that Nibiru approaches from a sub-ecliptic angle, making it visible only from the bottom of the world. They suggest that beneath the ice of Antarctica, secret facilities are monitoring the approach of the Anunnaki homeworld, preparing for a transition of power that the public is never meant to see. Let us look closer at the Sumerian VA-243 cylinder seal. This ancient artifact, thousands of years old, depicts a central sun surrounded by 11 orbiting bodies. In the era of the Sumerians, the world knew only of 5 planets visible to the naked eye. Yet, here is a map of the solar system that includes not only the outer giants like Uranus and Neptune, but an extra world. A world that sits between Mars and Jupiter, or perhaps one that travels a path far beyond them all. Sitchin argued that the Sumerians counted the sun and the moon as bodies, making Nibiru the 12th member of the family. If the ancients had a map that science only completed in the last century, where did they get the information? The answer remains the same. They were told by those who lived there. Modern science often dismisses the idea of a life-bearing planet on such a distant orbit. They argue that a world so far from the sun would be a frozen wasteland, incapable of supporting a civilization. But this assumes that life must be powered by the sun alone. If Nibiru is a massive planet with a thick atmosphere and a core rich in radioactive elements, it could generate its own heat. It could be a world of geothermal warmth, where life thrives in the glow of volcanic vents and internal energy. This is why the Anunnaki supposedly needed gold, not for currency, but for survival, by suspended gold particles in their atmosphere. They could create a heat shield, a reflective layer that kept their world warm during the long centuries in the deep dark. If this technology exists, it explains why we struggle to see the planet. A world wrapped in a shield of gold and atmospheric haze would be incredibly difficult to detect against the blackness of space. It would absorb and scatter light in ways that make it a phantom to traditional telescopes. Only through infrared, the heat signature of a living world, could it be found. And that is exactly what the IRAS satellite detected in 1983. The search for Planet X is therefore not just a search for a rock in the dark. It is a search for a technological signature. We must also consider the timing. If the orbit of Nibiru is approximately 3,600 years, and its last passing was during the era of the Late Bronze Age, then we are nearing the window of its return. This period of transition is often marked by global instability, a quickening of history that mirrors the gravitational tug of a distant world. Could the rapid advancement of our own technology in the last century be a result of the Anunnaki influence growing stronger as their planet draws near? Are we being prepared for a meeting that has been scheduled since the dawn of time? Some astronomers argue that Planet 9 is not a planet at all, but primordial black hole the size of a grapefruit, captured by our sun eons ago. While this fits the gravity models, it does not fit the myths. A black hole does not bring gods. A black hole does not bring gold. The Sumerian accounts are too specific to be ignored. They describe a world with a distinct appearance, a world that acts as a throne for the supreme ruler Anu. If science finds a massive object at the edge of our system, it will have to choose between a cold, dead explanation and a living, terrifying reality. The search continues in 2025. New surveys of the sky are underway, using artificial intelligence to sift through millions of images for a single moving point of light. Each year, the mathematical evidence for the planet becomes more robust. We are living in the final days of the unknown. Soon, the light from a distant sun will reflect off the golden atmosphere of a wandering world, and the telescopes will have no choice but to see it. When that day comes, the global conspiracy will crumble. The stories of the Anunnaki will move from the section of mythology to the section of history. We are not the masters of our solar system. We are the inhabitants of a house that has a much larger, much older owner. The return of Planet X would be the ultimate reminder of our place in the cosmic hierarchy. It would prove that we are part of a biological and technological chain that stretches far beyond the blue sky of Earth. Until then, we watch the math. We watch the infrared, and we listen to the echoes of the Sumerian tablets, which told us thousands of years ago that the crosser is coming. The search for Planet X is a search for ourselves, for our makers, and for the truth that has been hidden in the dark for too long. The stars are no longer silent. They are whispering a name that we are finally beginning to remember. The wait is nearly over. The journey that began on a wandering world is coming full circle. Tighten your grip on the mystery, for the horizon is shifting. Segment 13, the return cycle. Humanity's place in the cosmic order. If we have traveled to the shadows of the past and walked the ruins of ancient cities, we eventually arrive at a single chilling realization. The story of the Anunnaki is not just about where we came from. It is about where we are going. The elliptical orbit of Nibiru, that rogue world drifting through the deep cold of the outer solar system, is not a stationary point in space. It is a timer, a cosmic clock that has been ticking for hundreds of thousands of years. According to the Sumerian texts, the Anunnaki measure time in a unit called a shar, representing 3,600 Earth years. This is the length of time it takes for their home world to complete one circuit around our sun. If this cycle is real, then we are not living at the end of history. We are living in the quiet moments before return, a moment where the creators might once again gaze upon their creation. Imagine the year 2025. While the world is distracted by digital noise and local conflicts, the most advanced telescopes ever built are pointed at the darkest reaches of the Kuiper Belt. Scientists speak of anomalies in the orbits of icy bodies, a gravitational pull that suggests a massive, unseen weight lurking in the distance. They call it Planet 9 or Planet X. But what if they already know its name? What if the classification of this data is not about scientific caution, but about preventing a global realization that the architects are approaching their creation once again? The return cycle suggests that every time Nibiru swings close to Earth, our civilization undergoes a massive leap or a massive cleansing. The Great Flood recorded in the Epic of Atrahasis and the Bible may have been triggered by the gravitational stress of this passing world. If the horizon is shifting, it is because the cycle is reaching its zenith. This is the heart of the mystery of the cosmic order. We often think of ourselves as the masters of this world, the pinnacle of a long and lonely evolution. But if we are the legacy of the Anunnaki, our place in the universe is far more complex. We are part of a larger system, a subsidiary of a civilization that operates on a timescale we can barely comprehend. The return cycle is not just a physical event, it is a structural one. In ancient Mesopotamia, the arrival of the gods was a time of reckoning. It was when the kingship was lowered from heaven and when the laws of society were updated. If the Anunnaki are real, then our current systems of government, our technologies, and our very understanding of reality may be due for an upgrade, a shift that we are not being prepared for by our official institutions. Think about the global obsession with gold. In our modern world, we use it for electronics and currency, but its true value may be far more ancient. If the Anunnaki needed gold to shield their atmosphere from radiation during their long winters in deep space, then the massive hoarding of this metal by central banks and secret societies takes on a new meaning. They are not just collecting wealth. They are preparing a tribute. Or perhaps they are gathering the materials required to repair the very world that birthed us. The conspiracy grows deeper when we consider the underground bunkers being built in the most remote regions of the Earth. From the Svalbard seed vault to the massive complexes beneath the mountains of the western United States, someone is preparing for a shift. Is it a natural disaster they fear, or the arrival of a force that will demand an accounting of our progress as a species? Let us look inward, at the very blueprint of our existence. Geneticists have long been puzzled by what they call junk DNA, vast sequences of our genetic code that seemingly do nothing. But what if this code is not junk at all? What if it is a dormant software package, waiting for a specific signal to activate? In the ancient astronaut hypothesis, Enki, the scientist god, mixes divine essence with the primitive life of Earth. He may have left a timer within us, a genetic trigger that responds to the proximity of Nibiru's unique electromagnetic field. As the planet approaches, we might see a surge in human evolution, a rise in what we call savants, a leap in telepathic sensitivity, or a sudden global shift in consciousness. We are not just observing the return. We are part of it. Our DNA is the receiver, and the approaching world is the transmitter. This leads us to the question of the elite. Throughout history, the idea of a royal bloodline has been central to human power. The divine right of kings was not just a political claim. It was a genetic one. Rulers from Egypt to Mesopotamia claimed they were descendants of the gods. If the Anunnaki established these bloodlines to manage their mining colony, is it possible that those lineages still exist? Are the powerful families of 2025 the modern stewards of this ancient plan? They would be the ones with the most to lose if the truth was revealed, but also the ones with the most to gain upon the return. They might hold the true calendar, the one that tracks the Shar rather than the solar year. They would know exactly when the sky will change and the ships will appear. But what of the rest of us? What is our place in this cosmic order? If we were created as a labor force, have we outgrown our purpose? The rapid advancement of artificial intelligence and robotics in our era is striking. We are creating our own servants, just as we were supposedly created to serve. This is a reflection of the Creator within the creation. We are repeating the patterns of the Anunnaki. We are mining the earth, modifying our genetics, and reaching for the stars. Perhaps the return cycle is not about being reclaimed by our masters. Perhaps it is about being judged as ready to join them. If the Anunnaki return in our lifetime, they will find a world that looks very much like the one they left, but with one major difference. We have discovered the keys to the laboratory. There is a chilling possibility that the silence of our governments is a form of protection. If the truth is that we are an engineered species living on a world that serves as a resource outpost for a distant civilization, the reveal would shatter every religion, every philosophy, and every social structure on the planet. The global conspiracy to hide the existence of Nibiru and the Anunnaki legacy might be the only thing keeping our civilization from collapsing into chaos. Imagine the panic if it was confirmed that a planet was approaching and that its inhabitants were the ones who designed us. The James Webb Telescope may have already seen the evidence. The strange infrared signatures, the gravitational lensing, the objects that do not follow the rules of physics. To prevent a global panic, the data is scrubbed, the scientists are silenced, and the narrative is shifted toward more comfortable mysteries. Yet, the signs are all around us. They are written in the stone of the pyramids, which some believe were not tombs but beacons or power plants designed to operate in alignment with the Shar. They are etched into the clay of Sumerian tablets that accurately describe the colors of Uranus and Neptune long before telescopes were invented. They are hidden in the midst of every culture that speaks of a time when the gods will return to judge the living. This is the return cycle. It is a heartbeat of a universe that is far more populated and far more organized than we have been led to believe. Our place in the cosmic order is that of a bridge. We are the link between the primitive life of Earth and the advanced intelligence of the stars. As we look toward the horizon of the coming years, we must ask ourselves what we are willing to believe. Are we the product of a blind and accidental evolution, or are we the children of a cosmic plan? If we are the legacy of Nibiru, then our destiny is not here on the ground. It is out there, among the stars from which our architects came. The return cycle is a call to remember who we are. It is an invitation to step out of the shadows of the suppressed history and into the light of our true heritage. The elite may guard the secrets and the governments may hide the data, but the truth is written in our blood and reflected in the night sky. Tonight, as the stars turn above you, consider the possibility that we are being watched, not by spirits or ghosts, but by a civilization that has known us since our first breath. They have waited through the long winters of their orbit, and now the sun is beginning to catch the reflection of their world once again. The cosmic order is shifting. The Shar is completing its turn. We are not alone, and we never were. We are the legacy of a distant world, and the time for our reunion may be closer than anyone dares to admit. The mystery is not just in the past. It is in the very air we breathe and the future we are building. The return is not an ending. It is a beginning. If you are ready to look beyond the veil and explore the mysteries that have been hidden for millennia, stay with us. Our journey through the cosmic plan is only just beginning. Consider subscribing to Mystery History for Sleep and tapping the bell icon to join our community of seekers. Your curiosity is the key that unlocks the stars. Let us uncover the truth together, one mystery at a time. The sky is waiting, and the return is inevitable. Good night, and may your dreams be filled with the light of ancient worlds. The cycle is turning, and the horizon is finally clear. We are the children of Nibiru, and it is time to come home.